If there was a shortcut to language learning, using Pareto's 80-20 rule would be it. And what if I were to tell you about 80% of your success in learning is the result of about 20% of your effort? Or that most of the conversations you have in your target language, you will use about 20% of the vocabulary that you learn. This may sound like an overly sensational clickbait phrase, but bear with me for a moment. This concept is called the Pareto Principle, and it influences lots of things in life, including language learning. In this video, we'll look at what the Pareto Principle is and how to use it to make your language learning more efficient so you can progress faster. Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm the Intrepid Guide, your guide to language learning for travel using my 80-20 method. And if you're new to my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click on the bell notification so you get an alert when I post more videos like this one. So what is the Pareto Principle? In essence, the Pareto Principle states that roughly 80% of results come from 20% of the effort. That is why it is widely known as the 80-20 rule, as well as the law of the vital few. This principle was coined by management consultant Joseph M. Duran and named after the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who in 1896 showed that approximately 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Similar distribution can be applied to many other areas in our lives too. And here are a few examples of the Pareto Principle in action. 20% of the world's population hold 80% of the wealth. 80% of pollution originates from 20% of all factories. 20% of drivers cause 80% of all traffic accidents. 80% of software can be written in 20% of the allocated time. 20% of posts generate 80% of traffic. 20% of workers produce 80% of the results. 20% of customers contribute to 80% of the profit. These percentages are sometimes approximate, but what matters is not the exact numbers. The key thing here is that most of your results come from a fraction of the effort that you put in. So what does all this have to do with language learning? Well, the Pareto Principle can be observed and used for higher efficiency in language learning as well. In fact, this is how I teach languages in my Intrepid language courses using my own 80-20 method. The 80-20 rule in language learning means that most of your success is the result of only about 20% of the effort you make. It also means that only about 20% of the things that you learn contributes to about 80% of your improvement. For instance, quite a few language learners make the following mistake. They try to learn as much as possible, expand their vocabulary as wide as possible before they start to speak the target language. Now don't get me wrong, it is good to have a large vocabulary and it is important to never stop learning. However, you should never wait until you learn everything before you start speaking. The fact is, only a small percentage of the vocabulary of a language, around 2,000 to 3,000 of the most frequently used words, cover about 80% of all conversations and texts. This includes anything from chatting with friends or reading a comic book to lectures and articles. It might seem like 2,000 words is a large number. However, considering that there can be hundreds of thousands of words in a language, for instance, Spanish has around 150,000 words, it is not that much and is, in fact, quite manageable to learn. Generally speaking, you can use the 80-20 rule to learn languages by concentrating on the most common words. But that's not all you can do. So let's dive in and take a closer look at 11 ways the Pareto Principle can help you master your target language. Number 1, focus on the most frequent words and phrases. Now, as you've just learned, a relatively small number of the most common words can get you quite far in practicing and using your target language. This is the 80-20 rule in language learning. Of course, the most frequent words will differ from language to language, but there are a few key categories that you can start to single out. Using French as an example, here are a few key areas that you should focus on. Pronouns, for example, I, you, he, she, it. Basic verbs like to be, to have, to learn, to want, to live, to come. Basic grammar, including the word order, word conjugations, and the use of articles. Time indicators, for example, now, today, tomorrow, yesterday, or later. And basic nouns. Often you can also find lists online with the most common words in your target language, and you can also find these in language apps. For instance, you can start to seek out the most common Italian words for travel. Then working with a teacher, you can also ask them to help you to concentrate on the most essential words for your target language. Even learning just a couple of hundred of the right, most common words is enough to start practicing your speaking skills in basic conversation and to read simple texts. Don't worry about using advanced words or impressing people with your vocabulary. Don't be afraid of sounding simple or primitive. That's all in your own head. People you talk to will most likely use the same words, and simple phrases can be meaningful and effective too. You can and should expand your vocabulary as you learn, and advanced words will enter your vocabulary in the future and naturally. However, don't chase them at the beginning of your learning process. Learn the most common, simple words and make the most of them. And if there's a certain language that you want to learn, then make sure you check out my online video courses that use this 80-20 method. Number 2, start using your target language right now. Just memorizing the most common words and learning basic vocabulary is, of course, not enough for learning a language properly. After all, what's the use of knowing 2,000 words if you can't use them? Too many learners make the mistake of waiting until they reach a certain level before they start speaking. Don't be one of them. To make the Pareto Principle in language learning work for you, you need to start using the things you learn as soon as possible in conversation. The earlier you start speaking the language, the easier it gets and the faster you learn. So don't waste time waiting. Waiting until you learn X amount of words or reach X level is a waste of time. In the beginning, you'll be able to say just a few sentences, but the important thing is that you do say them and you say them frequently. Wish someone a good morning or chat about the weather. Ask what time it is. You may hear some new words in the reply, but you'll often understand them from the context and at least get the general idea of what the person is saying, which is totally fine at this initial stages of learning the language. You'll be able to say and understand more in the future, but to get there, you need to start speaking now. Number 3, make the most of what you know. The thing about the most common words in a language is that they are not only common, they are also quite versatile. There are many polysemantic words with several meanings among them, as well as words that can simply come in handy in many situations. You can learn to make the most of the vocabulary you know to be able to speak in a large variety of situations. Now here are a few strategies that you can use. Pay close attention to the context, including the whole sentence or text, as well as such non-verbal things that surround the situation or the speaker's gestures. This way you can often easily understand the meaning of a new or polysemantic word. Aim for general understanding first. After all, it's not quite about the individual words. When someone is telling you something, it is more important to understand the message, the main idea, than individual words. Work around the words you don't know. There is a board game called Taboo where you need to explain words to other players without using the words themselves. For instance, explain what a cat or a chair is without saying the word cat or the word chair. The game can be quite fun and is also good for language learning. There may come a time, even at higher language levels, where you don't know or don't remember the word. Don't worry too much, just use other words you know to help you to explain the idea. With some words, it is quite easy. If you forget the Italian word, for example, piccolo, which is small, you can say non grande, which is not big, to convey a similar message. With other words, you'll need to be a bit more creative, but it is all part of the fun of using the 80-20 rule to learn languages. Simplify things. For instance, if you haven't learned past tenses, use present tenses with past time markers. You can say things like mangio ieri, which literally means I eat yesterday, and your message will come across. Don't worry about speaking too simple or making mistakes. First of all, it is impossible to learn to speak correctly and beautifully without making some mistakes and using some simple sentences first. Secondly, the people that you will be talking to, such as native speakers or other learners, will be more accepting that you're still learning. Number 4, don't try to learn everything. First of all, it is simply impossible. There are too many words and phrases in any language and too many possible usages. Moreover, words become obsolete and new words get coined all the time. Also, your target language most likely has a few dialects with their own unique words, pronunciation rules, and even different grammar. One simply can't learn all of the language. Secondly, as we saw earlier, even if you manage to learn nearly all the words in your target language, you most likely won't use all of them. Take for instance archaic words that were used a few centuries ago, or the slang that teens use when playing a particular computer game. If you're not one of these teens or a student of history or ancient literature, both of these vocabulary categories are useless to you. If you try to learn everything, at best you will end up knowing a bunch of random words and phrases that you won't even be able to use. And as we all know, in language learning, what doesn't get used gets forgotten quickly, which will completely negate the effort you made. Don't chase the achievement of knowing all the words. It only sounds cool on the surface. Our time and effort are limited and valuable, so make the most of the Pareto Principle so you can learn your target language more efficiently. Number 5, learn about language learning itself. The Pareto Principle in language learning is not only about learning high-frequency words, it is about effort as well. Most likely, only 20% of your effort will bring you 80% of your progress in your target language, and some people's learning is even less effective. They keep on learning a foreign language for ages without practically any results. Don't worry though, there are a few things that you can do to make your learning more efficient. One of the things you can do to achieve that is to educate yourself about language learning. In the fast developing world of today, language learning doesn't stand still either. Whole new approaches to language learning appear, new techniques and strategies, new types of exercises, new websites and apps. A textbook written 50 years ago could have been good for its time, but today at least part of the material will be obsolete. Moreover, nowadays working with a textbook is just one of the hundreds of options available to you to help you learn your language. By learning what different options are out there, you can find the ones that fit you the most and make your language learning more efficient, more fun and more enjoyable. Number 6, pay attention to your experiences and results. Now, we are all different. We all have different individual habits and tastes, and we all learn differently too. There are visual and auditory learners, people who need more preparation, and those who are more spontaneous, social, or solitary learners. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to eliminate everything that doesn't quite work so well for you. For instance, even if you are a visual learner, you will still need to include listening practice, otherwise your listening skills will suffer. However, by noticing what type of learning is more effective for you, you'll be able to concentrate on it and make faster progress as a result. Number 7, optimize your learning habits. Now, this tip is similar to the previous one, but it has less to do with the language itself and language learning techniques and more to do with the day-to-day details of your learning. For example, when do you do it and what language tools are you using? What distractions are there and so on. Optimizing learning habits will look different for different learners, but here are a few things you should consider. When do you learn best during the day? If your learning is more effective in the morning but you only have free time in the evening, take a look at your schedule and see if you can free up a little time for learning in the morning or at least a couple of days a week. It can be hard to do with a busy schedule, but give it a try. And if you are a morning learner, 10 minutes of learning in the morning may actually be more effective than half an hour of learning in the evening. Are there many distractions when you learn? Work emails, social media notifications, children running around, or pets that want attention? On the one hand, we do need to pay attention to our work, families, and friends. But on the other hand, if you try to do it and learn a language at the same time, neither will be successful because multitasking really doesn't work. Now, while not all distractions can be eliminated every time you sit down for a language learning session, do your best to lower their number. Find a quiet room, turn off the smartphone notifications, ask your family to give you some time alone. And again, 10 minutes of uninterrupted concentration will be more effective than half an hour or so of juggling multiple tasks. The next question to ask is, are you using modern technology? Now, faster internet allows you to access language learning resources easier. Good headphones will make listening practice more effective and more enjoyable. A smartphone with a handful of language learning apps will allow you to learn and practice on the go whenever you want. Now, of course, you don't need the latest, most expensive tech to learn a language. However, if your tech is obsolete or broken, it may actually impede and slow down your progress, so consider replacing it. Now, these are just a few general examples. Your personal habits and the possible ways of optimizing them may be different. But as we saw with the previous tip, it is important to pay attention to what works and what doesn't. Find the 20% that brings you the results so you can make the most of it. Number 8, set measurable short-term goals. Now, imagine you have to travel somewhere, but you don't know the destination. But traveling somewhere without knowing the destination may sound weird, but learning a language without setting goals is exactly the same. Without clear goals, you end up roaming around. You learn a bit here and a bit there, maybe even make some progress. But truly mastering your language is impossible without clear goals. Saying I want to learn X language is not a good goal, as there is no clear understanding of what you need to do or how to get there, or the timeline. Goals that will help you maintain motivation and learn efficiently should be short-term. Set a goal for each month or even each week. Such goals will act as milestones, and moving from one to the other will get easier. You can have long-term goals as well, but without the short-term ones, they begin to seem distant and the temptation to put things off becomes more real. And you'll start to say things like, oh, that's okay, I still have a whole year to do it. This becomes a lot more prominent. Next is be realistic. Moving up a language level in a couple of months may sound possible if you spend several hours a day learning and practicing a lot. For most people with jobs and families and other commitments, this is impossible. By setting a goal along the lines of moving from A2 to B1 in a month, you will most likely set yourself up for failure. There may be some amazing stories of fast learners out there, but it is essential to take into account your capabilities and other responsibilities you have in your life. Next, make it measurable. One of the reasons why saying learn X language is not a good goal is because it is too vague. What level do you want to achieve? What do you want or what do you need to be able to do in the language? What topics do you need to master? When you say I want to achieve B1 in this level or I want to complete this course, this is a better example because you can actually see clearly if you have achieved the goal or not and how well you have been able to do it. Such goals will keep you on track and your progress will move forward and more efficiently. Number 9, confront your fears. Now there may be some things in your target language that are quite challenging, and many learners end up putting them off. For example, verb conjugation in Russian, or French pronunciation, or learning characters in Chinese. Such things are also usually essential for mastering the language. Is there something about your target language that you are afraid of or find extremely difficult? Don't run away from it, because chances are it is among the 20% of the language that is needed for 80% of all communication. For instance, many learners fear speaking, especially outside of the classroom environment. However, speaking is an essential skill. Most of us are learning a language to be able to communicate with people, and you'll never improve your speaking by being afraid to do it. It may be easier said than done, but facing your fears in language learning is a must. Otherwise, you will never truly reach your level of fluency. Number 10, be honest with yourself. Don't deceive yourself into thinking you are doing enough when you aren't. Don't try to convince yourself your learning is effective when it isn't. Abandoning old habits and trying out new ways of learning your target language may be challenging, but it is a good challenge that will shake you up a bit and help you stay motivated and make your learning more effective and more fun. On the contrary, sticking to old learning routines will only get you so far, or hardly anywhere. After all, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Why waste time and effort on things that don't bring you results? Number 11, practice and have fun. Practice is the most effective way of improving your level in a language. To make the 80-20 rule work in language learning, find different ways to practice the key language skills, including reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and do this every day. But don't forget to enjoy yourself as well. Some of the things that you enjoy doing in your target language may not be among the most effective 20%. However, language learning is not cut and dry. Our emotions play a great role in learning, and when you enjoy the process, you learn much better too. So learn those high frequency words and phrases, but don't forget to have fun along the way and to practice them by watching movies and reading books, attending language clubs or events, and chatting to people and browsing the web and finding language communities. Bring some enjoyment into your language learning to help the Pareto Principle work its magic. So there we have it. How to approach language learning with Pareto's 80-20 method. And what was your favorite tip in this video? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're serious about improving your target language, then make sure you download my free guide, 9 Reasons You're Not Fluent Yet and How to Fix It. Just click on the link in the description below and I'll send you my free guide. And if you want to learn languages with my 80-20 method, just click on the link in the description below to explore my online video language courses. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications to get an alert when I post more videos like this one. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy language learning. Bye!